Carlos Alcaraz, sentenced. Two former tennis players claim comparing him to Nadal is a sacrilege and point out Alcaraz's weakness after losing to Djokovic. Carlos Alcaraz will resume his season next Monday at the Rotterdam tournament, where he will be the top seed following the withdrawal of defending champion Jannik Sinner, who opted out to rest. This will be the second tournament of the season for the young Spanish player after the Australian Open, where he reached the quarterfinals but left some doubts after losing to Novak Djokovic. Unlike in previous tournaments, the Mercian has not received much criticism this time, as most discussions have focused on the Serbian, who retired in the next match of the first Grand Slam of the year against Alexander Zverev and was booed off the court. Spanish fans continue to show their full faith in Alcaraz, the youngest player ever to reach world number 1 and already a 4-time Grand Slam champion at just 21 years old. Since his emergence, while Rafa Nadal was still at the top, he has been seen as his natural successor. Although it seemed premature at first, it was Nadal himself who symbolically passed the torch to him, standing alongside Alcaraz at the Paris 2024 Olympics and their farewell together at the Davis Cup Finals in Malaga. Alcaraz is not Nadal's heir. However, despite the incredible achievements of the young player from El Palmar, some question whether he can truly be called Nadal's heir, pointing to the differences between the two to justify this skepticism. In this regard, former Italian tennis players Paolo Bertolucci and Adriano Panatta believe that Nadal's mental strength is far superior to Alcaraz's, and this is evident in the reigning Roland Garros and Wimbledon champions' inconsistency. Alcaraz wears sleeveless shirts like Nadal, but he plays differently, and mentally, he is 1,000 kilometers away from Rafa. They have nothing in common, said Bertolucci, comparing how Alcaraz handled having a set lead against Djokovic with how Nadal might have acted in a similar situation. Alcaraz should have gone up 2-1 in the match against Noel and, probably, would have won the match, the former Italian player stated. Alcaraz cannot afford to lose a match like the one against Djokovic. Panatta took it even further, arguing that Djokovic is no longer capable of keeping up with players like Alcaraz or Sinner in a long match, and that the Spaniard's loss proves he still has a long way to go before reaching the level he is expected to achieve. Even with a tied set, Alcaraz should not lose to Djokovic anymore. He can no longer afford to lose against Novak. He was beaten in Paris, but that was a special occasion, a final on clay at the Olympics. In a 5-set match, Alcaraz must reach a level where he simply cannot lose to Noel anymore, said the former player, who was one of the world's best in the 1970s. In this regard, Panatta also pointed out Djokovic's tricks, which many accuse him of using, and how Alcaraz fell for them. Mentally, Djokovic crushes anyone. The other guy took the bait completely, he said, referring to Djokovic's alleged injury issues. Novak is a great champion. Whether he is likable or not is subjective, he added. Carlos Alcaraz loses his biggest support in Rotterdam. Carlos Alcaraz is already in Rotterdam, looking for his first title on an indoor hard court, but he will be without his biggest support, Juan Carlos Ferrero, who has stayed in Spain until the US Tour in March. Alcaraz's season did not start as planned. His main goal was to win his first Australian Open, but in Melbourne, he ran into Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals. After frustrating him, Djokovic mounted a comeback in a match that Alcaraz seemed to have under control. It was a tough blow for the Mercian, but he has already moved on. After just over a week at home, resting with his loved ones after a grueling month in Australia, Carlitos is back in action. He is now in Rotterdam for the ATP 500 tournament, aiming to win his first title on this surface. However, he will have to do it without a key figure by his side. Alcaraz's career cannot be understood without the presence of Juan Carlos Ferrero, a pivotal figure in his development. The former world number 1 has been with him since childhood and has guided him through the most crucial phases of his career, from transitioning from junior tennis to the professional circuit and quickly rising to the elite. However, this week, Ferrero will not be accompanying him. In both Rotterdam and the ATP 500 event in Doha in a few weeks, Alcaraz will be coached by Samuel Lopez, former coach of Pablo Carreño. Lopez has been working at Ferrero's academy in Vienna for years and joined Alcaraz's team this year precisely to ease Ferrero's workload. Nevertheless, Ferrero is expected to rejoin the team in March when the US Tour begins. The heavy favorite, Alcaraz returns to Rotterdam after previously spending these dates competing on South American clay. This time, he has opted for Europe, and in the Dutch city, he will be the tournament's top favorite. Even more so now that Jannik Sinner, who was set to be the number 1 seed, has withdrawn, citing fatigue after winning the Australian Open. As a result, Alcaraz will be the top seed in a draw that includes players like Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, and Alex de Minaur. He has already arrived in the Netherlands and is acclimating to the indoor surface, which has historically been his weakest. Carlos Alcaraz receives a small boost. One of tennis's greatest strategists, Patrick Mouratoglou, has weighed in on the Sinner-Alcaraz debate, favoring the Mercian for his power, variety of shots, and remarkable precocity. He is one of the few voices recently siding with Carlitos. The tennis world has changed at the start of 2025, or rather, it has reaffirmed a theory that was already suspected, that Carlos Alcaraz needs significant improvement to consistently beat his generational rival, Jannik Sinner. The Italian, who has dominated the ATP rankings, won his third Grand Slam title in Australia, proving that his current level is untouchable, particularly on hard courts, where he hasn't lost in months. In fact, the last time he did was against Alcaraz in Beijing. The key difference between them is consistency. When they face each other, their abilities are evenly matched, and in some aspects, Alcaraz has even more tools. However, while Sinner is a relentless hammer, the Spaniard sometimes loses matches he should always win. This makes it difficult to determine which of the two is superior in terms of consistency, potential, or sheer ability. Patrick Mouratoglou, an authoritative voice in tennis, has given his perspective. I don't think Sinner is ahead of Alcaraz. When Carlos is at his best, their matches are true battles, and no one can predict the winner. All their encounters have been incredibly close, and Carlos has won some crucial ones against him. I wouldn't say Sinner is above him. I believe they are both ahead of the rest of the field, said Mouratoglou. Youth as an advantage. Another key factor that Patrick Mouratoglou highlights in the ongoing debate between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz is their age difference. While both players had an incredible 2024 season, winning 2 Grand Slam titles each and asserting themselves as the main contenders for the #1 spot in the ATP rankings, there is one crucial distinction: Alcaraz is 2 years younger than Sinner. This means that, in theory, the Spaniard still has more room for growth, refinement, and improvement in certain areas of his game. This additional time to develop could play a significant role in shaping his future success. Historically, many of the greatest players, including Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic, have continued to improve well into their mid to late 20s, even after achieving early success. If Alcaraz follows a similar trajectory, he could reach an even higher level in the coming years, making him an even more formidable force on the tour. However, despite his immense potential, Mouratoglou also points out that there are areas where Alcaraz needs to refine his game, and these are precisely the areas where Sinner currently holds an advantage. One of the most notable differences between the two is their consistency and ability to limit unforced errors. Sinner, known for his machine-like precision and relentless baseline play, tends to make fewer mistakes compared to Alcaraz, who often takes greater risks in his shot selection. Carlos is making more unforced errors than Sinner. He plays with much more risk, Mouratoglou explained. This aggressive style of play has both its advantages and disadvantages. On one hand, it allows Alcaraz to hit spectacular winners and turn matches around with his creativity and explosiveness. On the other hand, when his riskier shots don't land inside the lines, they lead to unnecessary errors that cost him important points, especially in high-pressure situations against top opponents like Sinner and Djokovic. Alcaraz's decision-making in key moments has also been a talking point among analysts. While his fearless approach to the game has won him many admirers, some experts believe he could benefit from incorporating a more controlled, strategic style, similar to what Sinner has mastered. The Italian's ability to remain composed, stick to his game plan, and consistently execute it under pressure has been a key factor in his recent dominance, particularly on hard courts. The debate continues. As the rivalry between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz intensifies, the debates surrounding their playing styles and overall potential continue. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Here at Tennis Zone, we bring you the best content for the best audience. Join our community and be part of the excitement of the biggest tournaments.